you're a CFO and a COO, so, an ops and a finance person. What has it been like being immersed in the scientific community?
The co-founder and I, the main scientist, our CEO, Travis Stiles, we've been doing that for almost 2 decades now, because I've been on so many calls and presentations with Travis. I try to regurgitate what he says.
Hello and welcome to the Sayva Spotlight, a client-focused podcast where we interview founders and CEOs from some of our most exciting businesses to learn about their industry's value props and what differentiates them from the competition. My name is Kasian and I am your host of the Sayva Spotlight. I am a certified public accountant and the Vice President of Strategic Operations for Sayva Solutions. Today I'm joined by a special guest, Shawn Gahr. Shawn is a co-founder, COO, and CFO of Novoron Bioscience. Novoron Bioscience's novel LRP-focused science enables hope for treatment of conditions for which no current therapies exist. They are currently advancing multiple biological therapeutics that treat pathologies of the CNS, including multiple sclerosis, spinal cord injuries, and tauopathies such as Alzheimer's. Visit novoron.com for more information.
Okay, Shawn, thanks for joining us today for the Sayva Spotlight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Before Novoron, you worked at a number of tech startups. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and how you wound up founding Novoron from there?
Yeah, I worked for a number of startups. When I got done with graduate school, working for small companies, working in innovation, just kind of gets me going, gets me out of bed in the morning. It's kind of like it's where I like to be. First couple startups that I was a part of were in Seattle. One was a biodiesel company that had raised a bunch of money and was trying to basically make an economies of scale play back, I don't know if you remember that time, but this would have been about, right around 2006 through 2008, biofuels were really hot. So I worked for a biodiesel company for a while. It flamed out very quickly, but it was a great experience, as all the startup companies I've worked for have been. From there, I went to one called Aptio. Aptio is still alive and going strong. Totally different industry. They work in the technology business management sector with SaaS products. So much more of an IT bent. And then from there, I worked for a MarTech startup for a little while as well. And in between, actually, I did some consulting for different, another biofuels company, well, not a biofuels company, a hydrogen storage molecule, and did a number of different consulting jobs, kind of trying to help different founders get their projects up off the ground, and become real companies. But Novoron, we founded Novoron in 2014. Really, the genesis of it was the co-founder and I, the main scientist, our CEO, Travis Stiles. He was doing he was getting his PhD at UCSD. I learned about his work because he's been a friend longer than we've been co-founders. And I learned about what he was doing on our annual trip to Las Vegas for the first weekend of March Madness. We've been doing that for almost 2 decades now. It kind of started out as a group of guys here in San Diego, Illumina guys, ServiceNow, kind of the stragglers, those of us who were like in school at UCSD or, USD, San Diego State. One night in Vegas, Travis and I got sick of losing money. We were kind of the poor students. So he started telling me all about his work and, his kind of fear of his discovery that he made that he thought would be very, very impactful to be able to treat neurodegenerative conditions. He was very afraid that it would kind of just die on the vine. As a lot of great innovations do, it's kind of a passion of all of ours, all 3 of us co-founders, to get innovative ideas and get technology out of our academic institutions and be able to develop them and commercialize them and get them out to people to help people. It's not like academic institutions don't try. It's just that there's a lot of plumbing there that needs to be in place, and there's a lot of gaps that need to be filled in order to be able to actually do that. Background with startups, I just kind of threw it at him. I was like, well, we can start a company. He still needed to finish up his work and all that. couple years went by. Our third co-founder was also in the same biochemistry program at UCSD, getting his PhD. Shared the same passion. When it came down to it, we decided to open up shop in January 2014 and try to advance Travis's discovery. We were initially funded by grant money from the NIH, National Institutes of Health, to develop therapeutics. We got the first grant was to develop a therapeutic for spinal cord injury, and then subsequently we kept kind of funding the company until we could make enough progress to be able to get private capital, VC money, angel money. But that doesn't come right away, right? Like you got to develop to a point where you de-risk what you're doing enough. And so the National Institutes of Health, being able to do all of that early stage work with their funding, they allowed us to make that progress over the first 6 years of our existence. And that's kind of the genesis. We were eventually able to raise private capital. We've got a great investor. They've been wonderful to work with. They really get it. And now here we are.
Yeah, you're close to your 10-year anniversary. I mean, that's quite an accomplishment, especially in the life sciences space. I mean, you know how it goes. It's really tough to make it. It's very competitive. And like you said, sometimes the best ideas, they're tough to commercialize. So that's really fantastic. Now, you talked about spinal cord injuries. And in the intro, I gave some context around the different therapeutics that you're developing. So let's hop into these lines right now. What are we working on right now, and where are we at from a stage perspective?
Yeah, so our lead molecule, NOVO118, we are currently leading into our first meeting with the FDA. So what that means is we're gonna package up all of the study data that we put together, go to the FDA and describe what we're going to do for IND enabling. So investigational new drug filing, right? So we'll have a couple of studies that we'll need to do before we actually are all kind of wrapped up and ready to go and say, here's our filing, FDA. We're ready to test our drug in human populations. So our first clinical trials. In parallel to that, we are manufacturing the drug. When you manufacture a drug, it needs to be done at GMP quality. So you end up contracting with a manufacturer, a CDMO, and they do that work for you. You take the delivery of the drug, and then that's what you use in the clinic and beyond for your clinical trials. Right now, we've started that process. So we started manufacturing. And so we are projecting that we should be in the clinic by Q2 of 2025. Is what we're looking at.
Fantastic.
So we're not too far away with spinal cord injury. Yeah. It's kind of it's the program that's the farthest along. It's the one we started first. It's a program that's farthest along. A little more on that. There are two populations of spinal cord patients. There are acute spinal cord patients and chronic spinal cord injury patients. Initially, we are only going to be treating the acute. So that is we will be at clinical sites where we will be treating patients, within 48 hours of them actually being injured. But hopefully down the road, we will be able to further develop our drug for chronic patients. So that would be all the people out there in the world who've had a spinal cord injury and have been living with it for years. The reason why we can't go after that patient population quite yet is because the way that the body scars and kind of protects itself after a spinal cord injury, and over time, our drug would not be able to get to where it needs to go in order to be able to do its job. Our other programs, we really have two more. Multiple sclerosis. We're developing a therapeutic for multiple sclerosis, which came out of our spinal cord injury program. Because if you think about a nerve, you've got the neuron itself, and then you've got the plastic coating, or you've got the electrical wire, for the nerve. And then you've got the plastic coating, if you're thinking about an electrical wire, which is myelin. And you need both for nerve regeneration. So myelin, with multiple sclerosis is a demyelinating disease. And so we found out very early on in some of our studies that we were seeing functional recovery very quickly by injecting our spinal cord injury drug. And it was too quick for it to make sense that it was the actual nerve growing back. When it turned out we were getting a remyelination effect very early on. So that spawned our multiple sclerosis program. We're developing a derivative of Novo 118. It'll be a new therapeutic, but it'll kind of be based on Novo 118 for multiple sclerosis. And we've got a really exciting new collaboration going with a group in Australia, actually, an academic lab down there that is led by Dr. Kasian Young. And it just turns out that she has a ton of overlap with our CEO, Travis Stiles, as far as their knowledge. They're very much kind of unicorns in the world from a scientific perspective. So we're super excited about that. COVID kind of killed our multiple sclerosis program. We had to abandon our studies. We had to abandon our studies in, March of 2020. So that was really disappointing. And we're just now, it's 2023, and we're just now kind of getting things back to where they need to be so that we can basically start over, which is not great. But it is back, and we are excited about the trajectory of that program. That one I would say, is probably at least a year. A year sounds about right, behind spinal cord injury. So Q2 of 2026, we could potentially be talking about having a drug for remyelination, which none exists. No drugs out there exist for remyelination for multiple sclerosis in Q2 of 2026. So in the clinic. So that would be exciting. Our third program, and the newest one, and the one that investors are super excited about, and different pharma groups that we've talked to are excited about, is for tauopathies. A couple of different labs, academic labs, 2 years ago, published separate papers on the receptor that we target with our drugs, LRP1. And they identified LRP1 as the master regulator of tau uptake into the brain. Obviously, that's amazing. We already, that's our domain, right? We got into a collaboration with one of those labs, and we've been and funded it with grant funding from the NIH, and we've been kind of progressing with the studies that we need to do there. And for that one, we've identified a very, very specific piece of this large domain, LRP1. It's massive. We've identified a very kind of specific spot that we are targeting with a new drug. It could be a small molecule. It could be a biologic peptide. We don't know yet, but that's kind of the path that we're going down right now. We have the capacity in-house and the capabilities to develop biologics. That's our realm. Peptides, non-antibody biologics, and small molecules is a completely different animal. We don't have that expertise, but we have developed some really, really good relationships that are helping us to advance along that path, because we want to find the best drug that we can, and it could be any one of those. So coming at it from a number of different angles. But yeah, that's kind of a summary of the three different programs there. I can't really give a projection on when we would maybe be in the clinic with the tauopathies drug. So the one that everyone knows is Alzheimer's disease. That's a tauopathy. CTE, football players, traumatic brain injury, right? Those are all tauopathies. But yeah, so we're moving them along.
Yeah, it's absolutely just fascinating hearing you speak on this, and being you're a CFO and a COO, so an ops and a finance person. What has it been like being immersed in the scientific community? Because you sound like a scientist when you talk about these things, but I know that's not you.
Because I've been on so many calls and presentations with Travis. I try to regurgitate what he says. If I can't speak to it now, then I'm a little too slow. But I don't come from I'm not a trained scientist. My background's in finance and economics. But as I mentioned, like I've worked for companies and that were like biofuels is a lot of chemistry, right? And heavy science. Data science is a huge part. Both of the two other startups that I've worked for. I worked at Microsoft as a consultant for a while. Like I've done a number of different things. So after a while, you pick it up.
Yeah.
You figure out how to ask the right questions, and you learn, and that's part of the fun too, right? Like I actually really enjoy that. Being able to enter somebody else's domain where they're the expert, and be able to understand what's going on, and try to become knowledgeable enough to actually be valuable to the team.
Sure. So, yeah. I mean, it's a hell of a lot more exciting than Excel. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
Awesome. Well, you mentioned that, small molecules aren't your thing. Well, being in San Diego, obviously a life science hub, that must, enable a lot of opportunity to partner with somebody in small molecule space, right?
Yeah. I mean, San Diego's just got an incredible ecosystem here. I mean, if you're in the Bay Area, if you're in Boston, if you're in San Diego, the opportunities that you have as a life sciences company or as a biotech company like we are, they're unparalleled. We've got a bigger talent pool. We've got incubators where small startup companies can actually become companies. It's so expensive doing what we do, right? And so the barrier to entry, just from being able to get the money together to have the equipment that you need and the facilities that you need to do science, it's a huge bar, and it's really kind of unique to this field. So having this ecosystem that has lowered that bar to entry and allows for companies to go try to do what they want to do and develop and fail quickly too, that's important as well, without needing to raise millions of dollars just to get going. It's huge. Like I said, we were in J Labs initially, an incubator, up in Torrey Pines, La Jolla. We were able to do that, and only have really 2 employees. And we were able to advance enough so that we could get that next little bit of cash and that next little bit of cash. And you push it down the road until you get that big chunk of cash so that you can really scale up and start doing things more quickly. And there just aren't, it's a very expensive endeavor, and it takes, decades and decades to build up a community, a life sciences community and an ecosystem like we have here. I mean, you think about that cluster, Torrey Pines, La Jolla, you got UCSD, you've got the Burnham Institute, you got Scripps, you've got Salk Institute. They didn't all just spring up overnight, right? I mean, Salk and UCSD date back to the 60s, I think. General Atomic, like all that, like that kind of cluster is unique in the world, right? There's only a couple of places that can kind of compare. So yeah, very, very lucky to be here in San Diego.
Yeah, I mean, it just promotes innovation, and there's just a track record of excellence around here. Now, you talked about the talent pool being bigger in San Diego. That's obviously fantastic, but it's also a tough talent pool to acquire sometimes. You need to be able to offer the right things to get top tier talent. What has been your experience on getting the right people within Novoron so you can continue to advance these therapies?
I mean, the first thing, and I think something that every startup does, is we make them owners. We make our people owners, right? We have tried to be generous. I've been in enough startups to know that not every one of them does it the same way, right? We try to be generous about really giving an ownership stake to who we hire, and that goes for everybody who we hire. From the folks that we have who are just fresh out of undergrad, who are our research associates, right? You will not be able to attract top tier talent these days if you can't provide a work environment that is where people actually want to come into work. And like what that means is like having a fully stocked fridge, providing snacks, all of those types of things. Little things like that, they just add up. Our facility right now, we were very, very, so I'll give the background. I gave it to you a little bit before when we were talking earlier off camera, but we had gone from J Labs to Biolabs, another great incubator with a bunch of other startup companies. And we just moved out of Biolabs 2 months ago. So we are brand new in our own space, where we're the only company. We had to build out our lab, get the equipment for the lab, all of those things. But when we were choosing the site where we would move to, because we looked at a number of different places in different parts of San Diego different parts of San Diego County. One of the things that we never lost sight of, though, was we wanted a space felt good to come into. And the space we have now is great. Tons of natural light, high ceilings, brand new. We are the first tenants here. It's just a really great space. And so I think it makes it easier. It's not only attracting top talent too, it's actually also attracting investors. We had a group come in a couple of weeks ago, And it was the most aggressive we've ever had an investor group follow up with us. A lot of it we kind of attributed to, we took them to our rooftop deck and we showed them, this is all of our stuff. We built this out our way, we've done this our way, right? And I think it really made a positive impression because you could kind of visibly see that they were like excited just walking around and taking the tour with us, before we even got down to nuts and bolts of the business. But back to talent. Yeah, I think health benefits, another huge thing, obviously. I've had multiple employees when they've joined us say, it's really amazing, like for a company of your size, that you guys are contributing this much to our health benefits. And I was like, and we give them options too, but like, these are things that you can differentiate yourself on from other companies that you may be competing with. 401k, it's mandated now, but we were doing it as soon as we could. So all of those little things add up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's just even the investor story that you gave, it's just conscious decision making, right? Being thoughtful, really thinking things through. I think people see the difference. They notice the difference,
Just kind of going even a little bit beyond that, and how our relationship develops, or, Novoron's relationship with Sayva Solutions, right? As a small company, it's beneficial to, like, our philosophy is it's beneficial to be able to outsource as much as you can, especially when it comes down to getting true expertise, right? And how that makes a difference is, like, from a finance standpoint, yeah, I could have done it all myself, right? And tried to keep up with all of the minutia of accounting and the, and tax laws and all of the different things, right? I could have done that. But or I could have hired a financial analyst to do that, right? But what I'm getting, the expertise that I'm getting to make sure that we are following everything and that I have somebody seeing around corners, I would not be able to get by hiring, a junior financial analyst, right? And that in and of itself, like, that provides confidence to everyone, including employees. And even a step beyond that, we also use Sayva Solutions for our HR kind of back office, if you will. There is 0% chance I would be able to keep up with any of that. And I guarantee you, we already probably would have been way out of compliance on a number of different fronts, from an HR perspective, and probably, be digging ourselves some holes in some cases if we didn't have the support, the experts. And especially on the HR front, there's an interface there with all of our new hires. Whenever there's questions about health benefits, like, they don't come to me. They go to the expert who knows our company, knows what we're doing, is a professional about it, and can tell them exactly what they need to do. So that's actually, that's kind of it's a benefit that's a little bit less obvious and in your face, but it's a big one.
Yeah, just instills confidence in the whole operation. Okay, over the last year, what have been some of the most critical operational strategies that you're working on or trying to implement to continue to move Novoron forward?
I'm going to kind of focus in on one particular area. It's a big one, and it really around our multiple sclerosis program. Spinal cord injury as well, and I'll get into that in a second. But it's all about that, what I mentioned earlier about kickstarting that multiple sclerosis program with the collaborator that we found in Australia. The contract manufacturing organization that we decided to go with for the manufacturing of our spinal cord injury drug, NOVO118. We looked at a bunch of different CDMOs all around the world, some in the US, some in Europe, and in Australia. And the one that we ended up deciding on going with is in Adelaide, Australia. Previously it was a Pfizer facility. Some of the former employees got together, got some funding, and then created their own CDMO where they do drug manufacturing. There were a couple of different reasons why we went that route. One, it's a great facility and they can do everything that we need them to do. And they've got, all the expertise. Two, the Australian government has a program where for every $1 of spending that you do on research and development, they will give you 43.5 cents back in rebate. And it's not a tax rebate, it's cash. So they give you back a cash rebate every year for any money that you spend on R&D. So cost wise, Australia is extremely competitive. That was another factor in us kind of creating a beachhead down there and deciding to do our manufacturing down there. What went into that was, we found a group. They have a number of groups down there where they, you contract with them, accounting firms similar to Sayva, but their niche and their expertise is helping foreign companies come in and set up their subsidiaries. And they do the tax filings and they manage the books. And, when you start hiring people, they manage payroll for you. They do all of the different aspects of the business administration that you need done. And they do all the filings initially to get the subsidiary up and going in the first place. And so we contracted with one of those, got the subsidiary going, got our manufacturing started. But then, we were looking at other ways that we could perhaps take advantage of resources that were there and available, and expertise that was there and available, and fold it in. And it just turned out that our multiple sclerosis program was kind of a perfect fit for Australia, in Australia. What we're really trying to do right now, and this is the kind of forward-looking vision, is we've got a collaboration agreement in place with the university down there and the Dr. Kayleen Young's lab in the university. She has begun doing some of the studies. We hired our first employee a month ago down there. They're embedded in Dr. Young's lab. They're a Novoron employee, so they're our first. It's our subsidiary is called Novoron Bioscience. They're the first employee of Novoron. Nicole Bai, she is embedded in Dr. Young's lab. And now what we're actually trying to do, because we have a number of studies, so that's we need to get those studies done going forward to advance the MS molecule. But now what we're actually doing is we're trying to kind of expand the activities, not only in MS, but also with spinal cord injury around that lab, because we've been able to identify some really unique expertise in things like protein production, chemistry, stuff that we don't. Again, we're not chemists here, right? Our big kind of, from an operations standpoint, we have a ton of things going on to continue to expand in Australia right now that would be extremely beneficial to our business from a number of different standpoints. And we're really excited about it. Just kind of a little anecdote on, why it's like, okay, well, you guys, we produce protein. We can make protein, right? Not at the scale that our manufacturing organization down there can do, but we can do it at a lab scale for, the studies that we need to do for our multiple sclerosis and our spinal cord injury programs. Shipping protein to Australia doesn't sound, or it's not as easy as you would think it would be in 2023. It's actually, there's a lot that goes into it, and we were able to find a great scientist that can do that protein production for us on lab scale, and then essentially, walk it across the street to where it's actually going to be used in the studies. So, it's little things like that where we're trying to expand in ways where everything's synergistic, right? Identify where there potentially could be, and then, have a vision of how it kind of comes together in the end. But yeah, that's kind of an exciting operational growth opportunity for us right now.
It sounds like a great setup. It's cost efficient, as you mentioned, with the R&D credit. It's efficient from a production standpoint and testing standpoint. And then I'm sure in a way it enables some more capacity at your US lab to continue, pushing the ball forward in other areas.
So that's exactly right.
Well, let's hop over to the personal side of this. I love asking founders, just around the balance in their personal life. And, when you started this company almost 10 years ago, how has starting this company changed, your life off the field? We all don't go to work for the entire day. We go home to a family or whatever the case is. How's that balance been for you, and how has it evolved as Novoron's grown?
It definitely has been a little bit tough getting used to it. I moved my family down from Seattle once Travis and I raised that first chunk of private capital. So I quit my other gig, and we moved down here. And my wife, luckily, she her work could be remote. She works for a company where she's able to do that. Moving is never easy. For an individual, it's never easy, and trying to move a family it's pretty terrible. So kind of getting settled in, and you know how easy it is to find housing in San Diego. We've got all kinds of stories from just trying to get settled in the first place, about trying to find housing and that kind of stuff. So that there was a lot there, and then on top of that, where I'm coming down with, we've got money that we need to deploy, we got people we need to hire. All of these things are happening at once, right? So I think it was probably 6 months at least before I kind of put my head up and I was like, okay, what happened? Like, where are we at right now? It's kind of been just slow progress, kind of trying to get that balance, right? Like for a while, I'd on days where I could kind of step out early, I'd go hit golf balls at the driving range before I picked up, my daughter from school, getting down to getting over to the ocean. We live pretty close to the beach, a couple of beaches, but, getting over into the ocean, just go get in the water for a half an hour or whatever, as often as possible. Like trying to find things to kind of unwind and get my eyes off of a laptop. That's the trick. I've got a regular basketball game that's been extremely helpful in kind of providing me with some, with a break in the day, and some balance, a couple times a week. So I don't know. It's a work in progress, I guess is the best way to describe it.
Yeah, it's just challenging, especially you add kids to the mix, the change of scenery for them, new house, new school, and yeah, it's just a little crazy. And I found myself, the way I've been grounding myself lately, I haven't been making it to the golf course, but I've just been running. That's all I've been doing is running. People think I'm crazy, but that's it, man. It's it's cheaper than therapy. So I just go.
Exactly.
But no, that was a great answer. And I appreciate the all the context. Now that you've been in San Diego, you've kind of experienced, the tech scene, the innovation scene in San Diego and Seattle. In your personal opinion, what would be the major differences you think between these two markets?
They're pretty stark, actually. Seattle's like an IT powerhouse, right? It all stems back to Microsoft being there.
Yep.
The number of companies that have come out, since Microsoft it's insane. Like there's the only place that compares is the Bay Area. Like Seattle's just it's a behemoth when it comes to those types of startup companies, right? They do have some life sciences startup companies, some that have been successful, like Amgen, Juno Therapeutics. Those started in Seattle, but like those are really, and there are some others, but the number of startup companies in the life sciences space is just much, much smaller than it is here in San Diego. And especially in comparison to the number of, other tech companies that are in Seattle. And San Diego is really the opposite. I can think of ServiceNow, which kind of is more like, if I was going to, look at companies and not know where they were located, I would say I would probably guess that ServiceNow was actually a Seattle company, right? But I would also guess that Amgen was a San Diego company. It's just two very different mixes of tech, which is great, right? Like you don't have to do everything. The Bay Area tries to, but that's pretty much what it comes down to. And how that plays out is the type of people that you are around and working with on a day-to-day basis. There is some overlap. I swear one of our senior scientists must have been a programmer at some point in his past, based on what he eats. He lives on cereal and soda.
Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. But no, I mean, working with scientists all day versus working with, coders, a lot of those are, you think about the customers, right? Like our customers there's only a couple of them. There's probably 20 potential customers that we have in the world, and we have access to all of them, and we can easily create relationships with all of them. Like we're a successful company, not if we become the next Pfizer or Merck. We're a successful company if we can develop assets and then partner with Pfizer or Merck and have them take it and get it out to the masses. They've already built all that infrastructure. They have all of the commercial capabilities to do the marketing, the sales, and hopefully, you know, before we even get to the clinic, we're at that point because they've got the clinical trials infrastructure is already set. They have all the expertise to be able to do that stuff. We don't need to build out a company that tries to do all that ourselves, right? We might, but we don't have to. Whereas, you know, all of the startup companies that I work for in Seattle, you know, you have many customers. It's B2C, right? It's, you know, you're dealing with you're dealing with teams of people, you know, at B2B, B2C, you know, at other companies, for instance. There's a much more there's a big aspect of customer relations there that I think sticks out versus, you know, kind of in this type of company, in this type of biotech company that we have right now. But that again, too, might be an individual thing. But yeah,
sure.
There are a ton of differences between San Diego and Seattle.
Yeah, absolutely. Not just the weather.
Not just the weather.
You know, you've been in San Diego for a little bit. So, you know, in my prior podcast, we've wanted to get some San Diego favorites on the record. So let's see what you got here. Taco shop.
Papa Sotes.
Where's that?
Just found it. It's a block away from here. These guys are great. There's not even you barely would even notice it.
By Petco.
Right here near Petco. They're brand new. They just opened up in the spring. I also like Agave Birria up in it's up near my house up in Leucadia. Papa Sotes. Yeah.
Papa Sotes. All right. You know, so maybe we'll stick with the you know, the Leucadia area. What's your favorite beach over there?
Well, probably my favorite one is in between Solana Beach and Cardiff, tabletops.
You surfing?
No, I was when I was in grad school at UCSD. I wouldn't call it surfing. I went out with my friends who were surfers, and I paddled around in the water a lot.
Yeah, that's about as far as I got too.
I'm no surfer.
Awesome. And, you know, how about this last spot? You know, you talked about trying to, you know, find a way to find some balance. You have a young daughter. Where's your favorite go-to spot to bring your kid?
The Botanical Garden up in Encinitas is great. It's definitely a go-to. We hit beaches every weekend pretty much, and mix it up. Go to Moonlight Beach a lot, Beacons. She loves the beach. And then my other go-to is the aquarium at Legoland. Because it's only like 10 minutes from our place, and you avoid all the crowd of actual Legoland because not as many people go to the aquarium, and it's like an easy way to kill an hour just cruising through there and, you know, having a look at fish, and like it's cool. I don't know.
That's some great advice right there. That's a parent hack right there. Aquarium at Legoland.
Yeah. You need them, right? You need them.
Yeah, absolutely. I know. I brought my kid to the Birch Aquarium once, and he loved it. It was unbelievable.
Yeah, and the Birch is a superior aquarium, but Birch is so like the traffic there.
Getting in and out.
The traffic. Just even be able to get in around a kid's schedule. You definitely have to get reservations in advance, which I think of go-to spots as like,
you gotta wing it.
I didn't think about what I needed to do today. So it's like, I've got about 5 minutes to decide, and then we got to get out the door before nap time.
Well, that's awesome. All right. So, you know, this has been great chatting with you, Shawn. Great catching up with you, learning about Novoron. So one final question, you know, what can we expect to see, you know, towards the end of 2023 and into early 2024 from Novoron? What should we keep our eye out for?
We've got a couple of announcements coming up, I think. One that we are really excited about. It's more of from a business standpoint, but it is going to help us immensely when we go to talk to the FDA for our spinal cord injury drug. Is we are about to submit our application for orphan drug designation. And what that means is, if you're not familiar with it, it's if the patient population for a certain condition is under 225,000, let's just call it 200,000, then you can apply for the status, orphan drug designation status. And what it does is it gives you increased access to the FDA. Basically, they help you. They help guide you, and you can and you don't have to do as many studies and spend as many resources on the development pathway to getting the drug to humans, getting it to the clinic, and then getting it, commercialized. And so for spinal cord injury, again, we're only going after that acute population right now. It's about, in any given year, it's about 20,000 people in the United States suffer a spinal cord injury. So that's going to be really good for us and kind of grease the wheels for our first meeting with the FDA, our pre-IND meeting, which we expect to do in Q1 2025. So those two things I think are super exciting, that are right around the corner. And so we're working like crazy right now to get everything we need in place, leading up, meaning finishing up the studies that we need to finish up all prior to the holidays, hopefully, so that we can stay on time, with our delivery and, start those interactions with the FDA. It's a huge part of, what we need to do. I would look out for that, look out for announcements on that. And then we've got a couple of other things that will, just follow us.
Yeah,
follow us.
absolutely. Well, I really appreciate your time. Best of luck this year. I know we'll be in touch. Everybody follow Shawn Gahr on LinkedIn. Follow Novoron Biosciences. Check out their website. And thanks for tuning in to the Sayva Spotlight. Thanks again, Shawn. I appreciate it.
Thanks, John. Good to see you.